Welcome to the Destiny Awakening Interviews, a podcast with Andrew Wayfinder and his guests, bringing you powerful insights, inspiration, and ways to break free, live life your way, and make a difference in our changing and challenging world.
So hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to another edition of the Destiny Awakening Interviews. I'm Andrew Wayfinder Ranievich, and I'm joined today by Kelly Meerbott, transformational business coach, leadership and team development expert, speaker, facilitator, and podcast host. And a very warm welcome to you, Kelly. And where are you hanging out today?
Thank you, Andrew. And I'm just so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, right outside in a small town called Narberth, but most people know Philadelphia.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's a beautiful city from the few chances I've had to experience it.
Yeah, it's a great city, and there's fantastic people and great culture and great diversity. It's an incredible place to live, and it's a great time to be.
Cool. So, well, let's get on to the work you do.
Okay.
It's really fascinating. So for 20 plus years, Kelly's used her experience in sales, marketing, and business building to support leaders in companies like Virgin America, McDonald's, Walt Disney, the Ritz-Carlton, Comcast, and many more. Kelly's helped C-suite leaders and newly promoted or high responsibility executives develop their leadership skills and their potential. I think the way to describe it is to quote one of her clients who said, "I'm much more aware of my impact on my team in a leadership role. Kelly has propelled me to another phase of my life. She's professional, supportive, creative, nurturing, and authentic." So thank you, Kelly, for your time today. And we're going to be talking about nurturing belonging. And Kelly's going to unpack that idea by answering 6 questions. So the first question, Kelly, who is your ideal client and what's the transformation your work helps them achieve?
Sure. So it's anybody who's felt like they don't belong. And we basically unpack whatever that is that's holding them back from belonging to themselves first. And what I mean by that is however they manifest in life, being comfortable in your own skin, just being without having to change or contort yourself to whatever is telling you need to change or contort yourself to. So it's really anybody who's felt like they don't belong, an ideal client. So
yeah, but it's interesting because before the show we were talking about how you work with these sort of top executives and a whole range of people in the military. So not belonging sounds kind of fluffy in that context.
Doesn't it?
So, question number 2, with these sorts of people coming through the door, what's the challenge they're facing that this process or this transformation responds to?
They don't understand, we'll use the military as an example. They don't understand what true empathy and compassion is. They don't understand the power or why they need to care for themselves emotionally, and believe it or not, that can make you feel like you don't belong. If you're feeling anxious or worried or because you haven't taken care of yourself, because all you've been doing for 20 years is witnessing trauma and you're not dealing with that trauma, that's going to make you feel isolated and alone. You and I both have trauma backgrounds, right? Trauma is very isolating. So if I can bring them back to their center, and help them find their true north, which is really what you believe in at your core values, those guiding, principles. And then teach them that there is value in them no matter how they show up in the world. Then from that place, they're going to be better leaders because they're not going to be projecting their figurative wounds on other people and bleeding all over the world. They'll be whole and healed.
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting. Before we were talking about trauma and leadership and not to get into politics, but, clearly leaders like Trump, like Johnson here in the UK, they're not sort of mentally intact or emotionally strong and stable people. They're very, very damaged and very wounded, and they're pushing that out to the
Yeah.
people around them.
Yeah. I mean, and you and I believe that everything's energy, and they're tapping into our lowest form of energy, which is fear, that primal fear, and when you probe that fear, it's real easy to get people to follow along with you because they're afraid. They don't know what else to do. And they're like, well, I recognize that because we can only recognize in others what we have in ourselves, right? So it's, trauma, recognizing trauma, probe that fear, follow along, right? So, yeah, I mean, I look at Boris Johnson and Donald Trump, and I feel pity and compassion for them because I want to know who didn't hug them as children, who didn't love on them, like how did we end up here, and you and I discussed it. Like I had a traumatic response to Trump myself, and I was like, I can't dislike somebody without really knowing about them. So I went down this whole rabbit hole where I read a bunch of books about him, and I was like, okay, this is what happened, where bullying and lying were quote unquote trained to him as business tactics. So when you think of it that way, it's like, oh, I'm not a bad person, I'm just doing a business tactic. Well, you
Yeah.
and I both know better than that. So
Yeah. Okay. So, question number 3, what's your number one insight would you share with someone to help them right now?
um, we can handle anything in the present moment. It's the fear of what might happen that truly unravels us. So stay present.
Great idea. So, in your own experience, question number 4, what concept, book, program, talk, or experience has had the greatest impact on your own development?
Byron Katie's The Work. She's been a teacher and a trainer of mine since 2013, and I'm proud to say I've met her. I volunteered for her turnaround house. The work is powerful. It's free and available to anybody. What I loved about it, Andrew, excuse me, is that what would happen between like therapy appointments, and I told you this before we got on air, that part of my self-care is going to see a therapist, that I do that. That's part of my plan. But what would happen is I would go, I'd feel better, all this stuff, and then 2 days later my world would fall apart, and I was like, okay, I have to wait another week to see what can I do myself. And when I discovered the work, it's a written meditation, and it's very simple. It's 4 questions and a turnaround, and you can go download any of the resources from her website. I mean, she changed my life, and anytime I get back in the work, I mean, even my husband, he went on a retreat with me to learn the work, and he's, when I'm off balance, I'll say, the work works. Yep, it sure does. So yeah, I can't say enough about her team. I mean, that whole organization is fantastic.
Okay, great. We'll put that in the show notes. And so, question number 5, what free resource would you like to share with the audience?
Yeah. So we have a couple for the audience, actually. We have an anti-racism resource guide. We also have our podcast. We have tons of free resources. But the thing I was thinking about specifically for your audience, Andrew, was we have a mental health and self-care assessment that I'd love to share, because I think everybody really needs to turn up the volume and amplify their self-care right now, because things are intense and changing all the time, and change, is viewed by the brain as a death. So there's a lot of grief involved. And if you can get back to taking care of yourself and making sure your vessel is filled, then you're going to be doing better than most people. So
Okay, so that'll be on your website, or is there a
well,
specific?
we can email, I'll have my team email that to you.
Okay, great. So the last question, what should I have asked you that I didn't ask you?
That's a great question. There's so many. I mean, how did I get into coaching?
Okay, how did you get into coaching?
I got laid off. I got laid off, and you and I both believe in signs, and, I'm a big believer that the universe puts you in pain in order to get you to shift, right? So I wasn't going to leave my corporate job. I was making lots of money, but I was very physically sick. Like I would get sick every day when I went into the office. And when I got the envelope with my name on it on January 20th, 2009 at 9 a.m., and the only reason I know that is because it was inauguration day, I wouldn't have left. I needed to be pushed out the door in order to do what I'm called to do, which is coach. And, you and I had a great discussion prior to getting the mics live. You said it was like a parent watching a child blossom. And for me, watching someone break through or really peel away all of those things that are detracting from who they are at their core is like a miracle unfolding in front of me. And to be able to bear witness to that and hold the space for somebody is something that I'm honored to do. And it moves me every day. People in their progress move me every day. And I love it so much. I love just being able to help people, and by leveraging my own mistakes and where I was, to say, hey, listen, I was face down in the mud. Like it was awful. I didn't want to get laid off, but here I am. And 12 and a half years later, who knew? So.
Okay, great. So that's perfect, Kelly. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for all you're doing. I mean, Destiny Awakens. Here we go, right?
Thanks for listening to the Destiny Awakening interviews. If you have a friend who would benefit, please share and subscribe to the show on iTunes and leave a review. We really appreciate it. And remember, always use your power for good.